Okay, if you could choose an item that would define the 2000s or an accessory, what would it be? I'll give you like 3 seconds to think. Okay, the correct answer is bags. Obviously it's subjective, but to me, it's bags. So I'm going to take a deep dive into 3 different bags that I think define the 2000s. See if you agree, but I can guarantee one of them might surprise you. And if you were around back then, I think it might bring up some core memories. You may have even had one. Before we set the scene, it's super important to take into account, at least to me, Y2K is not the 2000s. Y2K is influenced by retrofuturism. It's influenced by a lot of that 90s kind of sleek, kind of put together minimalist aesthetic. It has, I would say, cooler colours, more influenced by technology, by what will technology bring, like those silvery greys, those metallics. That's not to say the 2000s didn't have metallics, they certainly did, but they were used in different ways. The 2000s, what I'm talking about is McBling. Think Paris Hilton, that TV show, Cribs, if you remember. Think Lindsay Lohan, when she used to party at Le Deux, I think the club was called, in LA. That kind of era, that era was very bright. Like, this comes from that era. The colours were so much more colourful then. They popped, they really did. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now visualise, if you will, you have all the colours, okay? Now you are watching One Tree Hill, and then you're gonna watch the OC. Life is good. You're listening to Rihanna. You're listening to Fall Out Boy. Fall Out Boy. Life is good. 2005 is kind of midway in the decade, but still early into the 2000s. Because for me, I don't think a decade really hits until 2 or 3 years into it. So for example, the 2020s, we're at 2025 now. I don't feel like 2021 and 2022 really kind of, things were taking off. So millennial culture ending and then Gen Z kind of taking over. And you see that aesthetically as well. Like the clean girl and stuff, the clean girl aesthetic. So we have that. And obviously you have way more micro trends now, but I digress. Okay, now I would argue the key accessory for the 2000s were bags for a number of different reasons. Number one, you still had it girls back then, and they meant a lot more than they do now, for whatever reason. That could be another video, you could debate that in the comments. So bags carried by it girls were huge. Additionally, you didn't have dupe culture, so kind of bags did make a statement. You couldn't get copies as readily. Not to say they weren't made, of course. I got a fake by accident, but it wasn't as accessible. And so when you saw the bags on celebrities or in real life, they did hit, they really did. And kind of thirdly, I do feel like, as I said, micro trends cycle is a lot faster. So you would see these bags for a while, and you'd be like, yes. Additionally, I was a size 12 and UK. And I found it difficult to shop. Not obscenely difficult, but it was difficult. So people were like, now they're talking about like, oh, Topshop this, Topshop that. Well, I'll give you Topshop. They did not make sizes properly. Even now, I have a size 12 kind of jacket coat thing. It's lovely, it's beautiful. It's got bows on it, pink, 3/4 length sleeves, but it's really tight around the hips. Even their size 12, like the bigger sizes from size upwards than 12, they make for very up and down bodies. It didn't make for anyone that had slight curves. And a 12 is by no means big or plus size, whatever you want to term it, but that was, back then, it was considered that. And you've probably seen or experienced the extreme kind of like thinness of everyone back then, and those low-rise jeans, my God. Anyway, so bags kind of were an entry point and were an easier way, at least for me, to be like, oh, if I wear this bag, I'm gonna be so cool. So there is that aspect, and I do think that's why maybe bags hit harder. What do you think? Chloe Paddington bag, introduced in 2005 by creative director, I believe her title is Phoebe Philo. I hope I've got her pronounced her name right. She did this bag, and it was my first love. It's lovely. This was a bag I accidentally got a fake of down Portobello Market. So it's basically, it's a heavy bag actually, and at the front is attached a padlock. It was everywhere, and I think, maybe I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, that's where this whole padlock thing kind of, you know, popped off. And other designers started using padlocks too. I do think the use of padlock is interesting because you've got, like, this is a designer item. A padlock is a tool of a tradesman, someone trying to lock up something. It's not giving high-tech security, it's giving like highbrow meets lowbrow. It's giving tension. I do feel that kind of summed up the 2000s a little bit. It also worked really well with flowy boho pieces, which were huge in the 2000s, especially around 2005. And that contrast of like this heavy duty leather bag with a padlock and like this kind of bohemian long flowy skirt, that really, really worked. At least back then. I still think it looks great, but what do I know? You had Nicole Richie, Misha Barton, just to name a couple. All the it girlies were wearing them. It was everywhere, and I'm not sure what they carried in, but they were everywhere. It has been re-released. I do think this re-release works. Why? They've made it lighter, physically lighter, so you can actually carry it. But that made me question, okay, we know they're re-releasing for the money, but and they're tapping into this whole nostalgia kick and this whole Y2K trend that's kind of blurred into the 2000s. But it's also made me think, are luxury brands, are they tapping into like the cost of living crisis and realizing that, okay, if I'm going to spend this money in a bag as a normal person, I need it to be functional, I need it to be practical. I will be going on the subway, I will be going on public transport, so I need to put stuff in it. Whereas before, was it just a status item and all they had to carry was like a phone and a bag and a book, and off they went, and an iPod. And a Lancome Juicy lip gloss, and they would get in a car, for example, a driver would drive them. I'm not sure. That could be Chloe trying to appeal to the masses, or it could just be also like better technology, like new technology. I'm not sure, but it's interesting considering the state of luxury brands right now. Next we have the Marc Jacobs Stam bag. It was everywhere, and it was inspired by Jessica Stam. This bag was huge, as I think a lot of the 2000s bags were, but it was quilted leather and has like a big chain, like a really big kind of gold silver chain, depending on which one you got, just kind of hanging. And again, it's the contrast, right? It's a contrast of the 2000s, because quilted leather is giving Chanel, it's giving preppy, it's giving classic, classy. The chain is giving not. So we have this tension, this juxtaposition. And that to me is the 2000s. The 2000s was a time of juxtaposition. So to capture that in an image, if you will, Paris Hilton wearing juicy couture, which at the time it was considered trashy. Yes, like it was in, but it was trashy. Not that there's anything wrong with trashy, I want to add that, but it was considered trashy. And then she's wearing like a Chanel bag. So it was that kind of mixing highbrow and lowbrow, this kind of workwear with classic. It was that tension that made the 2000s. It was used again by all of the it girls, My favorite, Beyonce's bag, metallic, stunning, beautiful. So they have re-released it. This one I do have opinions about. Okay, so like, look, again, what I was saying, the Y2K and 2000s are kind of merged, and to me they're very different aesthetics. So with this Marc Jacobs Stam bag re-release, the aesthetics of it is Y2K. They've got in Jessica Stam, I believe Summer Blair, and Paris Hilton, and Ashanti to kind of re-release the bag in the marketing and the pictures. And like, great, I think that tapping into that nostalgic element, fantastic, why not? However, the Y2K aesthetics mixing with like what I consider the Stam bag to be kind of Mick Bling, for me doesn't work. And I feel like there's an element of cash grab, of a quick and easy one and done. I think they could have done this way more cleverly. They could have done way more like references that were clever. They could have been way more creative about it. And I feel like they've just tapped in to this contrived element of nostalgia that's commercial and that's very easy to grasp without any kind of deep thought. And I do think this is a missed opportunity, at least in my humble opinion. So basically, this person, Luca Solka, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. They are a senior research analyst for luxury at consultancy Bernstein. They spoke to Vogue Business and they said this: reviving old styles helps to spread demand on more products, avoiding overexposure. It is like producing a sequel, lower risk than trying to hit the market with an entirely new blockbuster. So we have this thing in the creative industries, and I know you've seen it in films and movies, like what, Devil Wears Prada 2? What Marvel movie are we on? The millionth? Like the remake of Cruel Intentions into a TV show, really? Gossip Girl reboot. And it's that thing where it's like, the economy is so unstable, the job market is so unstable, everything is so unstable right now. The environment, the politics, and the luxury market is in decline. And I think that, like the movie industry, rather than take a risk, rather than be creative, they are going to replay, remake, re-release things. And that, I think that's what Marc Jacobs has done. And Marc Jacobs is a brand to me that really did define the 2000s. I have more than a couple of the bags from the 2000s and some pieces, like clothes. And I just think they're brilliant. And to re-release it in such an obvious way is, when I say obvious, I mean marketable, perhaps marketable. Obviously marketable. I say it as a negative thing, maybe other people will disagree. I think it's a bit disappointing. But, you know, life goes on. Third bag. If you're not from the UK, tell me if you know it. I don't know if anyone outside the UK knows it. This is a British brand called Paul's Boutique. Yes, I'm talking about the Paul's Boutique bags. Did you own one? Let me know. Now, the reason why I'm asking people, did you own one? And I didn't ask the other two, is because they were lowbrow. I think, they were quite expensive, at least for me, back in the day as well, because it could count for inflation. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're around 50 quid, 50 pounds. Let me know. They were sold in Selfridges and Topshop, and I believe they started in Portobello Market. Portobello. They were everywhere. But they weren't like on the arms of Kate Moss. They weren't on the arms of Keira Knightley. They weren't on the arms of Sienna Miller. I'm mentioning British celebrities because, you know, it's a British brand. They were on the arms of Cher Lloyd. Who remembers her? Is she from X Factor? I don't know. She's a British celebrity. But yes, they were loud, bright neon colours with the badges. They were big. Every girl, almost, in my class in year 9 had one. Now, I believe their popularity ran into the beginning of the 2010s. I wasn't sure if it was just a London thing, but then I read 2 articles. One Liverpool, one Manchester, I believe. They were big there. And it was a very working class bag. Working class girls used it. And if you saw a girl use it, chances are they had a specific look. So all the girls, and again, you could tell me if this was just my part of London or region, but they all had kind of like spider eyelashes, very straight hair. I don't know how they got it that straight. I used a straightener and still couldn't get it that straight. The dedication, very tan, slightly orange skin, and like kind of concealer lips, and a very kind of bold personality. I still don't have that confidence that they did or do. So it was a very working class bag, and it's one of those bags that I never necessarily wore or liked at the time, but can appreciate now. But it still sticks with me. I definitely think it was a cultural moment for so many people up and down the country. Arguably, I think more than Chloe, more than Marc Jacobs, for the everyday person, for, especially at that time, you're like, what, 13, 14, 15, 16, and at that time, bags made such a statement. And remember, in the UK, we wear uniforms, and we wore a kilt as a uniform, okay? This ugly kilt. And so your bag is the only thing that you can have, right? To make a statement about you. So this was the statement. So I think these bags deserve a place in the 2000s Hall of Fame, if you will. So it's interesting to look at this from many different ways, because obviously I've been shaped by these bags. These bags, clearly I still think about them. Marc Jacobs and Chloe are still thinking about them too as they re-release them. It says a lot about the luxury brands and where they're at re-releasing, aka could this be another version of Marvel, basically? Are they going to keep releasing bags rather than create something new? I also think it's interesting that 2 out of the 3 bags remain popular, or had a resurgence. Sorry, they had a resurgence. And the other one, the one that didn't, is more associated with working class British culture. And I've seen videos on TikTok and people are like, I can't believe I got this, it's so disgusting. So why does one bag get discussed and the other 2 is popular again? It's interesting. It's very interesting. But alas, maybe they will make a resurgence. You can get them very cheap on Vinted, actually. So if you do want a Paul's Boutique bag, they are very cheap on Vinted, so now is the time. But I don't know. Let me know what you think, because if you had a Paul's Boutique bag or one of these bags, or if you have an opinion on them, or had all 3 of them. If you had all 3 of them, I want to hear from you. My favourite is the Chloe. It was just the first kind of one that I saw as a young girl and was like, my love. But hey, okay, thanks for listening. And if you want to take an even deeper dive than this video, Substack. Bye.